job. I would let the Parsons family know that you're more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting, but the fun part is over. So stay at your leisure. Okay. Normally, there's a mass exodus after the presentations.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Menace.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jasmine.
you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Okay, at this time we will have the public comment period. Of course, we reference General Statute 115C-51. And Ms. Teresa Riddle, she's the local chapter president of the NCAE, would like to make a presentation.
First of all, I am Teresa Riddle, and I am a public school educator. And I just so happen to work in Alexander County at East Alexander Middle School. And I hope to be an advocate for always for public education. On March the 23rd of this year, at our North Carolina Association of Educators Convention, the Alexander County Association of Educators received the Rodney Ellis Professional Courage Award for standing up for public school students last year, May the 16th of 2018, at the March for Students rally. And then we did receive that award. And I wanted to let you know that Alexander County Public School employees were able to participate on this day because of the support from Alexander County Schools and its school board. As one of these employees who participated, I wanted to say thank you. And I view this award not just for Alexander County Association of Educators, but for all who took part, whether they were able to go to Raleigh that day and march, or maybe they just were here in support. With the hard work not only that day, but through the summer and on into November, and we all know what happens in November, supporters of public education have been successful in some areas to start the return of North Carolina public schools to pre-recession levels. And we believe it is time once again for a day to celebrate the General Assembly's passage, because there was passage that day. That's one of our successes. And their commitment to a strong public education system in North Carolina. It is called 5 Issues in One Day. On May the 1st, we want to take action again. We have 5 demands: a $15 minimum wage and or a 5% raise for all personnel, even those that are retired. To fully fund support personnel, whatever entity that support is, from TAs to school nurses to psychologists to social workers, whatever. To restore pay for advanced degrees, and to reinstate retirement benefits for future educators in the state of North Carolina. And they do want to expand Medicaid to make sure that all students are covered in health programs. I ask you on behalf of the Alexander County Association of Educators, all public school employees of Alexander County, and their students and parents, to support our May 1st day of action in whatever way is necessary. Thank you.
Thank for your comments.
May I say something, Mr. Allen?
Yes, ma'am.
I was there last year, and I will be back this year, marching on May 1st with you guys, and so proud of all the teachers. It was like a flood of red. So, thank you, Teresa.
Any other comments from board members? Okay, at this time, you have before you the consent agenda, and could I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
I would move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item 3, we will recognize Mr. Andy Palmer.
The fun, Mr.
The fun, Mr. Andy Palmer, and we will have a fun presentation regarding Stony Point Elementary.
I hope everybody's doing well. Turn this way. That's perfect. Let me make sure this is. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to come out here tonight and speak to you guys, board members, Mr. Chairman, and certainly Dr. Hefner. This is a great opportunity for me to brag on Stony Point, and that is not a hard thing to do for me. I love Stony Point, and if you get an opportunity to come and visit, please do so. The best thing that we have there are our students. They are just sweet, and they care, and they love on you, and if you show up, they'll treat you just like family, almost immediately. So take an opportunity and come on out and visit Stony Point. I will be, I'm not sure if it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 5 slides, but I'm going to be quick. We put this together. I know your time is very valuable. You guys all have families, and you like to get home to them, same as everybody here in the crowd. So I will be as quick as I can. But we do have a lot of good things. Let's see if I can get this. I turned it on, Dr. Clover. Can you get it? Thank you. We do this every year, and we've been doing it since I got there. This is our faculty versus our 5th grade basketball game. It's an annual thing. We try to do it right around our March Madness, and we do it for various causes. This one was for our Pointer Pantry. So these are hygiene items. I know you can't really tell by the picture in the corner there, but we collected close to 1,300 items, and those actually stay in-house. So toothpaste, shampoo, soap, they stay in-house, and if anybody gets on a little bit of hard times, and they can come in and they shop in our Pointer Pantry. And the staff basically charges what we say is a 1-item admission to come in and go to the game, but we always end up collecting well over the 242 kids that we have at the school. And this year was absolutely wonderful. It was 1,280, and you can see by the pictures, the students in the stands, they have a great time. They actually made some signs this year. And then you can see one of our students doing the jump shot. And then if you can really look at the one picture there, we had to recruit some extra help, and that's Danny Stikelether. I mean, he's in our building, so we technically can claim him. He's a good ball player. What it is we need the people to show up and play for us, and he does a real good job. And again, it's just a matter of collecting those items, which is what we do this for, and then all the fun that we have with it is just kind of the icing on the cake. You go ahead. I don't know if it's going to go. There we go. These right here, and I know yours with pictures of people, but these are staff members that we have been able to work into our building through various ways, I guess is the best way to say it. You can see that's Officer Bolin there. Boy, did we get lucky. We split Officer Bolin with Hidnight. So we get him 2.5 days a week, and nothing makes me happier when I'm doing my rounds through the building and I'm passing him going the other way. He has really jumped in, really fit in. He actually does a great job trying to connect with the kids, which is what you have to do. It's one thing to get to know the staff, but you really need to be at the kids' level so that they can trust. And probably the most important thing is that you see a police officer in a good light, not sometimes how our kids see them. And it's a very positive role model, and he does a great job. In the sheriff's department, through a grant, is how we were able to pick him up. And I just hope that we can continue that grant and keep him, and hopefully expand that to the other elementary schools, because he really does a great job. Mr. Taylor King there, we paid for him. He is a full-time teacher assistant that we paid for through some Title I money, and he works with our 3rd through 5th grade students, whatever they need. And we're talking about intervention, so if they're lacking this skill or lacking that skill, math, reading. But really what it's come down to with Taylor, it's one of those things is once you get that person in there and they start working with you and working with your staff, you can't afford to lose them then at that point. It becomes one of those. So we're just hoping, fingers crossed, that we're able to keep him as long as we can, if we can keep that money for Title I. But he is pursuing his degree in teaching, and I really truly hope that he follows through with that, because he's just got a gift for students and kids, and I hope that he can follow through with that, and actually we can hire him someday in this system. Then you have Caitlin Sweet, and we picked her up part-time. She's 29 hours, and she works with our kindergarten through 2nd grade. And again, just a fabulous job. She just jumped right in. We were able to get her on in January, and she's doing the same thing, math, reading interventions, and doing an exceptional job for us. It's one of those things, and everybody in the room knows it. I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. It's you need those bodies. You need people like that, because the teachers just can't get to everything that they need to do. And those two have done just a fabulous job. Then you have Mr. Gore, and that's communities and schools. So talk about feeling lucky. We got the sheriff's department, we've got communities and schools, and all these people are making a huge, huge difference. For Mr. Gore, he meets with 25 of our students that I don't know how to say it. You just don't have the time to get to all those students and develop those one-on-one connections, and that's what he does such a great job with on our building. And again, it's one of those ones that I hope to continue working with. He's a great role model for Stony Point. Our playground equipment. I know this doesn't seem like a big deal to you guys, but we are in the wrong business. That playground equipment that you see right there, we're piecemealing our equipment to our playground. That's how we're trying to build it. We haven't got a big grant or anything like that, but the equipment that you see there it's 2 new pieces. It's the stuff to the left there. The kids are standing on it, and that one actually spins around. It's like a merry-go-round that's safe. But that was $5,000 for that stuff, and maybe a little bit more once we installed it. But the kids have enjoyed it, and we're going to continue to try to get a piece every year, and this is through our PTO. And you can see some of the stuff that we've done, and I know that I've talked to you guys about this, but we were able to put a basketball court in a few years ago, and then our outdoor classroom as well. We put that in a couple years ago, and this is all through our PTO. So if you guys know Maria Lackey, that is our president now. Shannon Dyson has stayed on just to kind of guide her through that first year, but Maria Lackey is the one that is doing it this year, and she's doing a fantastic job. Please let her know that. The goal is, again, to try to get another piece of equipment, and you can tell by the smiles that nothing makes their day more than something different out there that they can actually get on and play on. Oh, our maintenance department. I know, again, here's a picture of a sidewalk, and you're like, what in the world? This is ridiculous. But it's the small things. That's what I'm figuring out. And what we have here is a sidewalk that over the course of probably 50 years had pushed up about 1 inch. This was a main walkway into that side door right there for lunch, coming to the cafeteria, coming from the gym, whatever it might be. I'm probably 40 yards away during car duty, and it was probably once a week you'd hear a kid is taking a tumble. Well, I honestly believe that the maintenance department could not fix that. There was no way. And Barry was out there one time, and I ran it by him, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll turn that in. I'll check on that for you." And I thought, well, that's the end of that. Thanks, Barry. Sure enough, that Friday that we had that work day, he was out there and he grinded that thing down, and
Wow.
yeah, and that's what it's all about. And it just absolutely blew me away that he would remember that and come back and do that for our school. And I can't brag enough on him and the maintenance department for always showing up and getting stuff done. The other one is that little roof there over that door. That's our before and after school care. And you can see that there's nothing that connects to that. So if it was raining, that is the only way to go into our cafeteria. So we always had to send a student through the rain to open the door to get into our building. Well, they fixed that too. They put that little bit of a roof up, and it has made a huge difference, not only for our students, but that's where our before and after school care is housed. So our parents now actually have a place where they can stand under when they're coming in as well. So thank you to our maintenance department. Our Walk of Fame, this is the last slide that we have here. I know that I've reported this to you guys as well, but we've morphed a little bit. We've used it to try to cut down on our leave earlys and our tardies. What this is at the end of every 9 weeks, we celebrate. And we roll the red carpet down the hallway. We invite all the parents to come into the building, and they line the hallway. Then we take all the classes, because we do say K2, then or K1, then 2nd through 5th would line the hallway, so the kids come walking down through, and it's academic, it's attendance, and it's character traits. That's what we've done. And then we've moved also to the leave earlys and the tardies, which were just killing us. We could not figure out a way to try to reduce those. So we've attached it to the Walk of Fame. One of the criteria to walk is, yes, you have to have good grades or the attendance, but you also have to have not left or been tardy 3 times in that 9 weeks. And at the midway point, when I talked to Dr. Curry and Dr. Hefner, we saw some results. Now, are we killing it? No, we're not. But we've seen a little bit of a difference. And if it all adds up, it'll come down to probably anywhere from 50 to 100 that we'll save for a year. So I consider that a pretty good success if those numbers play out. But the excitement that you can see in their faces, and then the best part is the parents. I don't know how they do it, but they show up and they support us for that Walk of Fame. And it's 7 to 10 minutes, maybe at the most, and they still come out and they really appreciate it that we are celebrating their students. So like you guys said, celebrating is probably the best thing to do. Same thing for us. But I'll invite you guys again. And that goes without saying for certainly you guys, but if you can, get over there. Again, the best thing we have going for us, and our faculty is amazing. Our whole staff is, they are unbelievable. But the students are where it's at, and I would love for you guys to come out and meet some of the students that we have there. So, you guys have any questions?
Questions, comments?
That was a great presentation.
Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I couldn't agree more that it's about having bodies, caring bodies that are in there to connect with these kids. And a lot of times you'll hear some famous person being interviewed and who was the most influential or what was the teacher, and it's these people
That's it.
that are going to help those kids in the long run. So
You never know who's going to make that
You never
connection.
know.
You're absolutely right.
so good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll recognize Ms. Macy Jones, Head Start Director, Alexander County. Head Start update.
Good evening, everyone. On March 20th, we received notification from the Department of Health and Human Services that our duration grant had been approved. I believe that Dr. Hefner shared that with you through email. The grant was in the amount of $579,453. And this grant includes 6 new buses, which should be here the end of May. Now, I don't have any control over Chevrolet Company, but that's what we've been told. And right here, I just need to go ahead and thank John and Dee for all their help, for everything that they did, because it always helps to have someone that can talk the language with Roy Parks at Thomasville Buses. So thank you, John, and thank you, Dee, for your help. The grant also included a position for a behavior therapist. I'm not sure if any of you have had the chance to watch the documentary Resilience. It talks about the biology of stress, and in that it talks about having a drama teacher who works with children through art therapy and helps them resolve their problems and their stress. So we want to model something like that. I've been talking with Dr. Helton about what that might look like, and a few other people as we work on a job description for that to work with our Head Start and NC Pre-K children. We were also able to ask for 6 teacher assistants, and I know that sounds like a lot of teacher assistants, but those people will be divided between Stony Point and Wittenberg schools, because we will have 2 dismissal times. We have a 1 o'clock dismissal time for 37 children, and we'll have a 2:45 dismissal time for 63 children. And so it's going to be kind of hard to have somebody be on a bus from 7 to possibly 3:30 or 4. You know, it makes their day longer. And also we've talked about that some of our folks don't begin their route where they work. So how would we get them back and forth to where they need to be to their vehicles? So those are some of the things that we had to talk about in our grant. The grant also includes, as I had mentioned before, when I came to you and asked for approval to submit it, an increase for staff, and that does exclude me, but a 3% increase for staff for their additional duties. The original request from DHHS was for 45 students. That's what they told us to apply for. But while on the phone with my program specialist and a representative from the Department of Health and Human Services, I was instructed at that time to add an additional 18 children to the 45. So it's not something that I knew ahead of time, that I could share with you ahead of time. It was just in that spur of that moment that she said, you know what, let's add an additional 18 children to this. So again, 63 children will stay into 2:45 and 37 children will leave at 1. I had one manager in the office during that call with our program specialist, and this program specialist and the lady in the regional office in Washington didn't give us a whole lot of time to make changes to the original request, so it was a quick turnaround time. So that's after the meeting with the managers, we decided that we could make it with 4 teacher assistants and not the 6. And I went over this with Dr. Hilton. I don't know if she remembers because I've been in her office so many times. But we decided that we could probably make it with 4 instead of 6, so I've asked to make a budget adjustment. And my regional office representative has talked to me about that and told me some things that I need to do. So I'll come back before you next month with that information, and I'll be talking to Dr. Hilton as well. I met with Dr. Clore, and we talked about how to proceed with the hiring of the additional the staff. I know we don't have a lot of time left for this year, but I still need to move forward with making sure that I advertise and show that I am making an effort to get those positions filled. And the regional office knew this when they sent the grant in mid-March. They knew we did not have a lot of time. I wish they worked a little bit on a different time schedule, but they don't. Okay, so I am working on that. I do plan to send a survey home on Friday to find out which parents are interested in their child or their children staying into 2:45. And if we get that information back, I hope in a timely manner, we hope to extend the day starting in May, from May until the end of the year. And Matt, I know you've heard all this before at Policy Council the other night, so it's redundant for you. But that is our hope, and we're going to try to start that in May. So I'll give you another update at the May meeting. Then on Friday, March 22nd, Dr. Hefner and I received a notice of preliminary non-competitive determination. And so I just sent her an email and I said, this simply means that the Office of Head Start has determined that we should not have to recompete for our next 5-year grant cycle against anyone else that may be interested in having our grant. If we continue to operate within the next year without any issues, without anything going wrong, that they say that our grant will not be opened up for others to compete for our grant funds, that it should just remain with the Alexander County Board of Education.
For 5 years.
For 5 years.
That's great.
Unless they determine something goes wrong during that 5 years. But as of today, we do not have to recompete for our grant funds. So that's good news. My program specialist was even excited on the phone about that. She hadn't received that notification. And so when I told her, she was excited about that. So what that means for the board is that if you have goals for us, you have goals for our Head Start program for this next 5 years, if you would share those goals with us, share that with Matt because he is our liaison, and then he'll bring that information back to Policy Council, and we'll talk to Policy Council about how we need to fulfill those goals that you have for our program. Okay. On March the 30th, I submitted the refunding application for 1920. I submitted it at 9:30 at night with 2 hours to spare, just want you to know. So I got it in on time. The application did include that waiver that I asked you about for the non-federal share. And then on April the 1st, I submitted a waiver for the 18-19 school year as well. And you had already given your prior approval for that at the January meeting. I waited until I had the additional amount for the non-federal share for the duration grant and included that in that amount. Okay? Any questions for me? I have that amount if you want it. It was $323,912. That's the waiver amount. $323,912.
Nancy, first of all, I enjoyed going to the policy. It was nice seeing the community getting involved in that. Could you just talk a little, because I'd be interested, because I didn't ask it then. Is the goal of the government to go all the kids to 245 eventually?
That is the goal. And that came out several years ago, and they gave us a timetable, and they said by 2021, part-time programs like ours should be serving full-time. So they started offering programs money, and they say they offered it, but they were really strongly suggesting that programs pursue going full-time. And our parents have really embraced that because a lot of them have children in the elementary schools where we're located, and some of them transport their children to and from school, and they like having the option of picking up their preschooler at the same time they're picking up the child that's in the elementary school, the grades. So we hope that next year we'll get the opportunity to expand for the other 37 children.
Any other questions for Ms. Jones?
Nope.
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional $5.99 for 5 years.
And I thank Dr. Hilton too for all that she does, because I'm in and out her office all the time.
Okay, item C, I'll recognize Mr. Harry Schrum, Facility and Structures Board Member.
I've talked with Dennis Johnson a couple of times over the past few weeks, and they've called for a final inspection on the new fire department. And I talked to Bill, who's Chief Building Inspector, talked to him yesterday, and on the final inspection, there were just a few punch list items, nothing very, nothing concerning. And they're in the process of taking care of those punch list items, and we'll have a certificate of occupancy hopefully in the next few days. and plan to be out of the building. Their plan is to be out the end of this month, so that they also would like to have their next Porta Pit fundraiser in their new building, which is scheduled for the 1st of May. So it's looking up right now. So, and I looked over the punch list, and I feel good about it. Been out quickly, so
Okay,
that's the update.
good news. Thanks for the update. This time I'll recognize Dr. Havner for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chairman Odom. This report includes a variety of dates. You know that we're getting to the time of year when we have a lot of events. So I'm going to ask Deborah to upload it to the agenda so you can print a hard copy if you choose to do that. But I'm going to start by just reminding everybody that we moved the retirement reception from the June board meeting. We did that last year, and we have a date for the retirement reception. It's going to be May 28th. We will be holding that event at the ACS cafeteria, and it starts at 6 o'clock. So again, that's May 28th at 6 at the high school cafeteria. This week is National Assistant Principals Week, and the National Association of Secondary School Principals and the American Federation of School Administrators declared this week a week of celebration for assistant principals. We are going to honor and recognize them for their contributions to our schools and certainly to the success of our students. And I hope you will make time this week to extend a special thank you to all of our assistant principals. We, as of today, established a date to visit Sugarloaf Elementary School. That date will be Monday, May 6th, and we will meet in the school's office at 11:30 that day. Again, Sugarloaf visit Monday, May 6th at 11:30. The formal budget request to the Alexander County Board of Commissioners for the 2019-2020 school year is due by April 30th. Sharon Mahaffey and I met with the Budget Committee on March 18th, and that was just to talk about some initial things that we think will happen, such as increases in benefits, such as retirement percentages and health care costs. We have not received any kind of formal notification of any of that information. We have not received anything as far as teacher allocation numbers or anything of that nature. But regardless, our request to the commissioners will still be April 30th. That means that we need to have another meeting to finalize what we will formally ask for. And I would ask the Budget Committee to check your schedules and let me know if you can meet on Monday, April 29th at 5:30. Monday, April 29th at 5:30. All right, and as I said, all this will be in an attachment to the agenda so you can run a hard copy. I wanted to let you all know that yesterday, Charmin Frizzell and I met with members from the Department of Transportation and an engineering firm called Accelerate Engineering. And it was actually a follow-up to a meeting that we held last May to talk about traffic congestion at Bethlehem Elementary School. The individuals in attendance, Kim Hinton with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, Gavin Tang from Accelerate Engineering, and Eric Thomas from Accelerate Engineering. We met to review the executive summary. That has been uploaded to the agenda, so you can read that summary. But on the last page of the summary, you will see an aerial shot of the Bethlehem School campus. And the purpose of the meeting, they actually conducted a travel study. And they used a drone and used human beings to do all kinds of traffic counts to see what could possibly be done to lessen the congestion on Highway 127 and Bethlehem School Road. Because some of you have fielded calls from angry parents and angry residents at a variety of our schools. And this was a follow-up to that study that was done last May. The good news is that one of the recommendations that was shared was actually something that we had discussed and had actually sought quotes for paving and different things so that we can change the car rider traffic flow at Bethlehem. The best news is, from yesterday's meeting, Kimberly Hinton with the Department of Transportation said that there is a possibility that the state will pick up maybe all the cost to that on-site change, what needs to happen. And if you will look at the aerial, what was proposed is that what is currently the bus parking lot, the buses would all be moved to the back side of the building. And you can see back there that they are proposing doing something similar to a cul-de-sac right there, a turnaround so that the buses would come in that back entrance, they would unload, go around the little cul-de-sac and then go back into the parking place. And then in the afternoons, the buses would stay stationary. We would load the buses as they are parked, as it's shown. We don't have that many buses at Bethlehem, but needless to say, that's what it would look like. And then they would certainly exit the campus and get back out on 127. Then that means that we could change the traffic flow because you don't mix cars and buses if you can help it at all, because that's just asking for problems with students trying to get into either one of those, a car or a bus. So then the bus lot would be turned into 2 lanes of traffic flow that would snake around in that parking lot and would come back up to where the shrubs are on the bank. It would involve some engineering work there because the elevation is different in that parking lot. When you go to Bethlehem, it's obvious when you park in front of the school that that's higher than it is down at the bus lot. So some work would have to be done there, but nevertheless, it would go back into a single lane and then snake back around, and we could load and unload cars in front of the school like we always have done there in a variety of stations. Sometimes they use as many as 5 or 6 stations to load, not so much to unload every day. But anyway, we see great promise in this. I did share that the students' first day back in school will be August 26th, and that we need to move on this as quickly as possible. If the state can help us out, being a former principal, I know that routines, and especially changes in routines, are easier when you start out a school year that way. And it's almost like you just retrain everybody again. And I see great promise, especially in getting that traffic that has been backed up on Bethlehem School Road and 127 in that area of the bottom parking lot that currently is used for buses. So again, the executive summary is attached to your agenda. Do you have any questions about what was shared yesterday?
You may have said, and I just missed it, but do we know about how much log of vehicles we could have in that area that would be off of 127?
Well, when we conducted a trial run on one of, I believe it was an early dismissal day. Is that correct, Dr. Clore? It was an early dismissal day. We took every staff member, an extra person that we could find with a car, and when you do 2 lanes of traffic in that lower lot, all the way till you get to where you would take out some of the shrubbery and do some grading work, and then it goes into a single file line, we could stack in 78 cars in there.
My first response was sarcasm, and I was going to say if only we could invent something that you could put 30 to 40 students in that would solve the problem. Has anyone ever done a study why, as someone who's from another area, and we all rode buses, why there's, looked at why there's a movement away from buses? Is there a way to do what's that, driving that factor?
Other than a parent survey,
Right, that's what I'm saying, with the parents to see why they want to.
We could do that. I will tell you that they had gathered some statewide information, and they had taken schools at about the same size of Bethlehem and counted the car riders, and it was anywhere from 100 to 150 more car riders at Bethlehem than they have throughout the state at schools of similar size. So, Matt, other than surveying parents, I don't know the answer to why we have so many car riders.
Okay.
All right. And then just the last couple of things, item number 6 on my report, a list of dates that span from spring break dates all the way down to graduation on June 7th. So I have a list of about 8 very important dates and events there for you. And then lastly, I want you to know that tomorrow I'm traveling to Raleigh. I sit on the executive board for the North Carolina School Superintendents Association, and we have a meeting planned tomorrow with Governor Cooper. I have been asked to talk about school mental health and security resources in Alexander County and the needs that we have. So thanks to Sharon Mahaffey, she has gathered information for me today with exactly how many people we have in roles such as social workers, counselors, psychologists, nurses, and resource officers, and what those recommended ratios are throughout the nation. And with the exception of the school nurses, we come up drastically short in every area. So I'm going to make a plea to the governor about what we need to have safer schools and to better meet the mental health issues that we're seeing with children. So I'm really looking forward to spending some time with him, and it's a good opportunity for the superintendents to get to speak directly to the governor. So do you have any questions? And I have on the list that you will receive the topics that we will discuss with him tomorrow: state investment in school facilities, principal pay scale, Senate Bill 613 or school calendar, school mental health and security resources, school performance grades, out-of-state teachers and licensure, the Governor's Commission on a Sound Basic Education, and then, of course, the hottest topic of the week last week was the classroom supplies bill, that where money would be channeled directly to classroom teachers. Do you have any questions?
Busy day tomorrow.
Busy day on the road tomorrow, on the road again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hebner. At this time, we'll recognize our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Sharon Mahaffey. We have some unfinished business regarding second readings of board policies, proposed board policies.
We have 8 board policies. They're up for second reading tonight. I have received no comments or concerns over the last month and would ask that you approve these on second reading.
We have a recommendation from Ms. Mahaffey. Can I have a motion to the effect?
Motion to approve on the second reading.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. And Ms. Mahaffey, if you'll continue with new business and new policy revisions.
We have 3 policies up for first reading tonight, and I hope this is a trend that's going to continue with fewer policies to review. But anyway, I'll bring those back next month. I'll get input and bring those back next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mahaffey. At this time, we'll recognize Mr. John McCurdy, our Director of Transportation. And I see Ms. Dee Watts is here too. They've been with us a long time, helped us through many a storm. So you have the floor, Mr. McCurdy.
John, the first thing for you is the activity bus agreement before we start this, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, Dr. Pepper. First, we do have the agreement with the YMCA for this summer's approval. I asked for your approval on it. The only thing that has changed will be the operating dates of June 10th through August 23rd. And there also has been a change in the per mile cost of $1.40 per mile. I can tell you from last year, the YMCA run 1,201 miles, what they used, and it was like a total of $1,561. That's what their use was. So I asked
Okay.
your consideration.
Okay. You have the recommendation from Mr. McCurdy regarding the agreement with the YMCA. Could I have a motion to the effect?
Move to approve.
In a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, Mr. McCurdy, continue, please.
Okay. Fortunately, that was a short presentation. I'm afraid this next one may not be. I was asked to look in, do a study on ways that we could save some money on our budget transportation. And as you know, the fuel prices that have increased, that we can't change that. And then I've talked about with higher fuel prices, that means rubber for tires, that means tires go up. So with all that being said, all we can do is reduce our fleet of buses. Otherwise, that'll be less gallons of fuel we use, less tires, less parts. I'll give you a little bit of background. You don't have this with you tonight. Back in October of 2009, our student count we take each year, we transported 2,480 students on 61 buses. We ran 718,978 miles. As of today, we now run approximately 1,838 students on buses. 3,724 miles per day is how many miles our buses run. We're using 51 buses. That comes to a total of 688,000 miles a year that we run on our buses. So as you can see how the student count has dropped for what we're hauling down, about 640 students since 2009. I just want to give you a little bit of background on that before we proceed. Okay, bus consolidation. Let me pass these out right quick. This is not in your package.
I'll give one to Mr. O. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll give you two.
Did you? Yeah, you did.
Okay, you want to go to the next slide. Okay, this is showing the current bell times used between middle schools and elementary schools. What we are suggesting to do is consolidate middle school children with elementary school children. And there will have to be a stagger of like 25 minutes travel time between the schools to make this happen. You've got before you the new bell time proposal. Show you a little bit about what we'd have to split that up. If you want to go on to the next one. Okay, and like I said, Miss Watts is with me tonight in case you have any questions as far as looking at student stops or where schools are located, about why we came up with the middle elementary instead of doing a middle high school consolidation. On the routes, the ratio, as you can see from our 18-19 data, would be approximately 70% elementary students to 30% middle school on each bus. And this would eliminate multiple bus travel to remote locations for the same stops. Otherwise, siblings that ride at the same stop at middle and elementary would be one stop for the bus, which would be a savings. And then the distance between elementary and middle schools will allow sharing of the buses. Drop off middle school students, then pick up more elementary students as we head towards elementary schools. I'll give you a little bit of a scenario how this would work, what we've talked about. For instance, the morning run. Okay, buses will go out to their furthest stops and work their way back towards middle schools and drop. Proceed towards their assigned elementary schools, picking up students as they go. Drop, then they would deadhead back to the middle schools. Okay, in the evening, buses will load at the middle schools, proceed towards their assigned elementary schools, dropping students as they go. Load at the elementary and then finish their evening routes. Then they would deadhead back to the middle schools. I know this is a lot of information. I know you have a lot of questions. Hopefully we can answer part of. What this would mean is all the buses would be stationed at the middle schools for that. There'd still be 14 buses for high school. It would run its own separate route for high school students. We would have 15 buses parked at East Middle School and 14 buses at West Middle School. It would be divided up to where your feeder schools would be Ellendale, Bethlehem, and Wittenberg to west. And then, of course, Sugarloaf, Hidnight, Stony Point, and Taylorsville would be for the east side. Go ahead to the next. Okay, that one, of course, says park 7 buses, should be 8. From the 18-19 day together, we believe we can park 8 buses instead of 7. We have got information from a graph you'll see a little bit later that shows that savings per bus of approximately $25,000 to $30,000. It's off of the student per student count for refund rates that's figured from DPI. The advantages, as you can see here, drivers from closed routes would be available for substitute driving. Of course, we know that's a big problem in Alexander County, is getting bus drivers. And we're not alone. It's county, statewide. I've talked to Caldwell, they're having the same problems. You just can't find permanent bus drivers. So, of course, our TAs and custodial and food service staff is having to fill those gaps. Hopefully this would reduce overtime pay for drivers, and this would help on our EC routes, be a better compliance on our times getting these students to the schools where they have to go. Okay, on the advantages. Of course, several stops can be made between the elementary schools and the middle schools, which will reduce ride times. You'll have students that will be not having to ride the buses long because they're going right by their house. We can stop and drop them off. We've just got that 25-minute window, though. We can't spend too much time because we've got to meet those bell times, at the schools to get them there. So we'll have to, be careful on that. Of course, this will affect our state efficiency rates. With less buses on the road, it should help that quite a bit. As you know, we have to inspect buses every 30 days. And that includes weekend days. It's not just 30 actual school days. So that would be less travel time for our trucks going out to the schools. They'll be going to one location, working at that one school all the time. And of course, our fuel truck the same way. He's not running all over the county. He's just going to east, west, and high school to do his fueling. The one big thing on this too would be, of course, the middle schools don't have access to drivers like the elementary schools do as far as TAs. But the middle schools would have access to those feeder schools for substitute drivers list. So they would have to draw off of those elementary schools. Disadvantages, of course, the deadhead time. There's really no way around that. We're going to have to deadhead back from after we drop off that last run. The only other thing would be on these elementary only release days. There's 10 of those built into the calendar each year, so that will require a double run. So that would be one thing, would be a disadvantage. Another big thing is field trips for yellow buses. A lot of schools do use yellow buses to run field trips, and they would have to, schedule that with the middle schools about coming to pick up a bus, unless they want to use an activity bus. So that's up to them. The cost of the yellow bus for an activity trip is $1.56. That's set by the state. Our activity buses, white activity buses with local, is $1.40 semi. This next screen, that's showing you the breakdown we get from DPI for the refund rates, and that's how we figure that $1.56. This is some of the information we went on to try to figure out savings per bus for doing this. I talked to Kevin Harrison, the DPI. He's the head down there, and he says that he cannot give me any definite figure on how much if you park the buses are saving. We've come up with some figure that we think will be pretty close. Because as you can see, the cost per pupil, $720 per pupil. And then this other shows $2.18 per mile for the refund rates. So I believe that's all I had, so I'll entertain any questions that we may or may not. Like I said, Ms. Watts is with me. If you want to see some graphs showing the student stops, what is happening is our elementary schools, they're the furthest out. And when you take Ellendale, Sugarloaf, Hidnight, Stony Point, they reach out to those furthest areas like Lenny's Mill, Hidden Valley. I mean, you know what I'm talking. We go into Iredell County and Hidnight and Stony Point to come back in to Alexander on Lyles Lane and Kennington Lane down that area. And that's a long ways out. So we need to go out there with one bus, come back this way, picking up all those students we can as far as the middle and elementary. We've got some elementary buses, I know one in Sugarloaf in particular, it's a 72 passenger bus, and when it comes back in, it's got 25 kids on it. But yet, to meet those time restraints for bell times, we can only run so long, we've got to get back. So by doing this, that's how we're saving and loading those buses, getting more efficient. So.
Is there a concern that some of our drivers would hit that 30-hour mark that would not be hitting it before?
Well, actually, that was talked about and hoping that we can get some permanent drivers and have these longer routes and maybe be able to offer benefits where we can get some permanent drivers that will stay with us. You know, especially in Bethlehem area, there's some of those routes up there that's only like an hour long. I mean, we go out some of those developments and pick up a whole load and come back in, we're loaded. And that's, you know, that is an issue because the drivers say, well, I don't want to get up at, 5 o'clock in the morning just to run a higher route. So by expanding that and giving them some more time, whether it does meet the criteria for the benefits or not, we're hoping to get better, I would say, quality of drivers, but drivers that'll stick with us. And there's no really golden answer for how to get bus drivers. I mean, it's a problem everywhere. And I really don't believe that it's the thing of money as much as it is people just don't want to drive buses like they used to.
Well, it's so much responsibility when they're driving that bus. And, when you tell people what the hourly rate is, weigh it against the responsibility is.
And there's a lot of upfront costs now with drivers. You have to get a CDL permit. You have to have it for 2 weeks before you can, finish your driving. You have to have the DOT physical now. That's a requirement. And that has to be renewed every 2 years. And then, of course, your CDL is good for 3 years for your pocket card. And so it's an expense up front. And a lot of people will tell you they don't have the money to pay that up front. So that's where, we ask the schools to talk about it and possibly they can help with some of that, if they are wanting to drive bad enough.
Board members, Mr. McCurdy made this presentation to all of the principals at the March principals meeting. And the only real concerns that I heard that day, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the directors, the 2 middle school principals, I guess, initially thought that finding sub-drivers for a fleet of 14 or 15 buses, they thought that all that responsibility would fall to their APs. And that almost felt like a full-time job. But what we shared is that there are a variety of options as far as if you want to assign an elementary principal certain buses in that fleet, that if the driver's out, it's your responsibility to get the sub. You can share that responsibility. But John, correct me if I'm wrong, that was really the biggest concern the day that you shared this with principals that I heard.
That's all it was talked about, really is.
Everybody certainly can do the math, and if it is $30,000 a bus, multiply that times 8, that's $240,000. And the reason that Mr. McCurdy was given this assignment is that we are looking to cut cost in every way possible, because there's no secret that our drain is in operating expenses. And so I certainly thank you, I thank Dee, I thank Dr. Clore It's been a team effort, but really, at this point, they're at a standstill. There is more work to be done, but they're at a standstill until they get a thumbs up or a thumbs down from you to continue.
Can I ask a few logistical?
Yes.
As somebody who doesn't know, do our elementary schools align perfectly with the middle schools? The way you were describing it, is all the elementary schools feed into the same?
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Like, if there's not a split that some from Sugarloaf go to one middle school, some go to the other. So they're all aligned.
They have been aligned exactly the way
Okay,
they
I just
are
didn't
right
know
now.
that. So
Yes,
that's
yes,
what's sorry.
yes. Good.
That's logisticals for me. And then you mentioned the TAs from the elementary school being drivers. How are you, the buses are gonna end at the middle school, so do they park a car and then drive to the elementary school for the workday and then leave early, and is that,
That's what would,
that's the plan?
policy would have to.
That's where they would leave from in the morning, so they would automatically have to drive their vehicle there. And then that dead time he talked about is that drive back to the middle school with no students on the bus. Their car would already be there, and then they would go to their elementary school.
So they would be arriving a little later in the school day than
Yes.
the bell time?
And in all honesty, that's what happens now with driving
Well, I
buses. You know, when you do both of those responsibilities to go and get the bus ready in the afternoons, there is some loss of time with children already.
And will this affect the Bethlehem discussion we heard from a minute ago, because you won't be parking buses at Bethlehem anymore, correct?
It will not affect the traffic flow.
Well, I
That
understand not
change in
the-
traffic. The only thing is, we wouldn't have
bus
to do
side.
anything to the parking lot in the back because buses wouldn't be parked there.
You wouldn't have to worry about bus parking anymore.
Right.
Okay. These were just,
Good, good
Chairman,
questions.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as parent-wise, pros and cons, you know, for a parent. I know they expect both, you know, middle school and elementary kids to get on the bus at the same time, which to me sounds like a good thing. Is there any negative for parents?
Well, I don't know of any, we've not heard any. Of course, this has just been put out, so we
Right.
don't know yet.
I can
Okay.
tell
What
you
this will do.
some concerns that I anticipate. It's different.
Yeah.
Some of our parents have never known a combined bus route, so it's different, and sometimes people do not embrace change. The second thing is that I think that some parents would have some apprehension with elementary and middle school students being together. However, when you look at that 70%, 30%, you're going to have fewer middle school students than you do elementary, but I anticipate those being the two biggest concerns for parents. But for some families, it helps. You know, if there's a middle school child and an elementary child in the same home, there's none of that worry about, does the middle school student get home first to get the house opened, kind of thing. They're right there together. So,
Any other questions or comments for Mr. McCurdy?
I just have one question. So it looks like based on the proposed bell schedule, the middle school's gonna lose 10 minutes a day of instructional time. And since we base our calendar, this may be moot, I guess, if the calendaring is turned back over to the local board. But is that 1,800-minute loss to the middle school's gonna affect we base our, you know what I'm.
our number of hours
Hours is
on the
based on.
longest day. It will affect it some. Jessica, can you speak to us as far as?
My understanding, and again, we haven't proceeded with any sort of nitty-gritty details, but my understanding is if it staggers us in the morning, it also staggers us in the evening. So the start times would change, but the length of day would not change. So those students would still be there that amount of time.
To me, it looks like the middle school's gonna lose 10 minutes a day. And so that's roughly 1,800 minutes. And I guess my concern was with our school calendar and how we've got it based on the number of minutes and not the number of days. How is that gonna affect the plan that we have in place with regard to protecting
Easter.
Easter
Go ahead and
week?
say it.
Yeah, okay, protecting Easter week and that kind of thing.
That would be something we have to.
We haven't gotten that far in calculating, but those are certainly things that we
Okay.
need to be cognizant of, because this year, we used all but 3 days
Right,
of the, I guess if you want to call it banked time.
right.
You know, so when you have a tougher winter, we get close. with some of that. Yes,
Can I
Dr.
say that when we were looking at the bell times, we just shifted, and maybe it's the wrong on the paper, I'll have to look, but we just shifted and kept, that was the whole main thing, is the same amount of time that we have in middle school this year, and the same length of day we have at the elementary school that we have this year. So we'll have to go back and look at the sheet.
Yeah, this may be wrong then, but to me, it looks like they lose 10 minutes a day.
That's not what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Because unless that happens because of what you just said.
Okay, okay, good.
Is there any, one other question, I'm sorry.
That's 50 cents.
All right, I'll put it in the kitty. Having served on the calendar committee, I know how difficult it is to accommodate everyone's needs and parents in addition to faculty. And, you know, this is gonna impact teachers as well, I think, with their start times being a little bit later. I would kind of like to get some feedback from some parents and some staff, not just principals, about how it doesn't appear to be a drastic change, but 30 minutes at 7:30 in the morning for me is a drastic change. Just to get some other input besides us.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know if you could maybe have the PTOs of each school, because those are parents,
Mhm.
look at it, and maybe their school improvement team, just, you know, you don't open it up, I don't think, to too much,
Mhm.
because no one's gonna be perfectly happy with any change.
Right.
But if we could get some constructive feedback from some folks that are heavily involved with the school systems, it might tell us how this is gonna impact them on a practical level.
As far as just dropping off and picking up children.
The bell times, I think, is always a change in the bell time seems to always be a big deal.
Mhm.
It just does. That piece of it I would like to know.
Mhm.
Or the parents, if they had any thoughts, constructive thoughts on the actual combination of the middle with the elementary.
Mhm.
Because you know that's gonna be an issue for some folks, and I understand that. So maybe just some way to get some practical feedback from the folks that this will impact would be helpful.
Every school has a parent advisory board.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we need to send home 5,600 surveys, but just some other input besides.
I think that one of the bigger concerns there would be that if the middle schools do stay exactly the same amount of time for the day, then that moves them to 15 minutes earlier instead of 5 minutes earlier. So, and I know that that'll be a concern to some parents. Would have been to me.
So I said 30 minutes at 7 o'clock in the morning is a big deal to me, because I'm not a morning person, but I think I like what you're suggesting,
Absolutely.
very
Better.
much.
Yeah.
I just think we need I personally would like a little more information.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty, for your presentation.
Can I add one other thing?
Yes, sir.
All I would ask is we don't take too much time.
No.
Because we're on a real tight schedule to be able to get these routes ready to build for the principals for the new school year. And we have other reports that's coming due that's gonna take a lot of time on our side. So we need, to have some kind of an answer fairly soon, if you would, please.
Yes, sir.
So the May meeting, would that work best? You think?
Dee, is that enough time? I don't know that
It's not.
it is enough time.
Okay.
Well, I don't wanna say we're in a lull right now, but we have time now. We could be working on it where we can't be doing some other things. So
Do you
as
need the
soon as possible.
consent of the board to proceed with an action plan, just formulating your plan of action, and then they could send out surveys or what have you?
Well, I guess we can start on it. Our big thing is we didn't want to get started on it, try to be building all this, and then,
Somebody
come
say,
right back and
"Whoa."
say, this ain't happening, this is out, But it is so much work to build those routes.
Were you looking for action?
The process is almost, everything up to this point, just to get you some information, can't carry. I have to lose it all.
She can't copy it and paste it
Okay.
It
into.
all has to start fresh again, so it's a process, but, and like Mr. McCurdy said, this is not the only thing. to help you make that decision, we will be glad to give you any information. We can't give you the parents' side, of course, because that's just gonna happen. We have combined, not elementary, middle school and high school routes. In the past, we did east, and there was a small period of adjustment for parents, but after that little adjustment, they were very pleased. So I'm hoping that that situation will happen in this scenario, because it has significant savings for this school.
Are you sending the early college kids home on the middle school buses? How's that working when they go out to the middle schools? Or are the parents just picking them up there?
That's just when they're not operating the regular high school. Those early college students are on regular high school bus routes.
Okay.
The only time they utilize the middle school process is when they're not in school. And they are. If
Gotcha.
early college is
Right.
running and the high school's not, then they use the middle school as a pickup point.
I know this is not Iredell County, but Dr. Clore was hired from Iredell County, and she served as an administrator there, but she's still currently a parent of a middle school student and an elementary student. And I'd like for you to speak just from a parental point of view.
And that's what I was hoping I would get the opportunity to do, because my daughter is in 2nd grade and my son is in 6th grade. And having the staggered times as a parent is a good thing, because it allows for, as a car rider, my daughter to be dropped off in the mornings, and then my son can also be dropped off in the mornings. And I'm not having to worry about, and I'm not trying to down buses, but I don't have to worry about one being one place to get on the bus while I drop the other one and whatnot. And I choose to do that because obviously I need to be here early enough, so to drop them in the car line is what works best for us as far as the time goes. But having that staggered start and ending of the day allows for the same thing. She gets picked up and then he gets picked up. And for a parent who has a child in both levels, that has really been a helpful thing for me with my working time, start time, to be able to do that and still get to work on time. And, you know, I have to worry about my children being at home trying to get on the bus by themselves, because I can do that. I won't do that myself, but that's been really great. And having worked as an administrator with that schedule and sharing buses, we didn't have any problem with it. It worked really well.
What was the start time at your school at Cloverleaf Elementary?
My car line, I was out in my car line at 7 a.m. every morning.
Yes, I thought so.
It was earlier than what we're proposing here.
Mhm.
And I'm not a morning person either. When I first got that job, I said, there is no way I can get to work by 6:45 in the morning. But I got used to it. And it worked. Our car line stopped at 7:30, that was the party bell, and we started our day. And then, you know, the other schools started later than us. We're proposing here to do.
It's a flip-flop.
A flip-flop.
Yeah.
And, you know, we also have to consider athletics in this. You know, I know that's not the main thing, but it's a big deal as far as the ending time and all, making sure that we can still participate at the times that they want to. There's a lot of positive things from a parent and an administrator standpoint in doing this. But bottom line, in my viewpoint, is monetarily, it's a big deal for our county because of the needs that we have right now. But those are my main points.
Is there a way to reach out to the potential impacted parents through Dojo or board docs or whatever medium you use to communicate?
We don't have Dojo in all the schools. The only form of consistent communication, I guess, would be through the call system. And what you can do with that, you can develop a survey that when they pick up the call, they can actually answer some survey questions, but I'm not the expert in that. Renee would have to help us.
The call notification system does allow for us to do a survey, and it's basically a yes, no, 1, 2, 3, A or B kind of option. But I think we could devise some type of survey to and utilize the call system.
Do you think that's, and maybe my request is not warranted. I just think, I like the stagger time, I like the proposal, I love the presentation. I just feel like a change that is fairly significant, I would like, even if you just gave your parent advisory groups, what do you think about this? Get back to me in a week or by next Wednesday. And if they don't get back to us, then it's up, just some shorter period of time, because I know they have a lot to do. I'm not trying to delay.
I'd like any feedback that we're going to get from parents. I'd like to have it before spring break. And spring break starts, Good Friday is not this Friday, but next. So I need to reach out to the principals, and we need to come up with some sort of a quick turnaround plan, Renee, with how we'll get that feedback.
Yeah, and I actually like what Karen just said, where you give them a period that they know that they can offer an opinion rather than just a yes, no, because it has no qualitativeness. Do we have to have a special call thing?
I think we should, possibly one day next week prior to Good Friday, we'll call a special call meeting, because this is an important matter. And if we give John and Dee a direction that they need to head in, we certainly do not want to delay their efforts. And it is, honestly, it is a time management and cost-saving operational cost. That's the whole premise for the discussion, because as was alluded to in the superintendent's report, with additional percentage requirement to go towards employer retirement match, meaning the amount that the local school unit pays toward the retirement for employees, and the additional costs for health care, we're looking at an additional, I don't know, rough math, $511,000. And you just can't pull those numbers out of the air or pay those bills with good intentions. So we're looking at every aspect of the operational cost of our school system. So I think we owe it to Mr. McCurdy and Ms. Watts to sure ask the question, but sure not get hung up on, because this is not an anomaly. It's nothing new. I learned a lot of my vocabulary as an elementary school student.
That's our concern.
Writing as a high school student.
That's not helping.
They're not helping.
I think it served me well. So, but I think we need to be transparent and open and just let folks know that we're trying to improve our efficiencies, because it has been asked of us to continue, and it's not like we started looking for efficiencies yesterday. The problem is we can't raise revenue, and we can't sell enough donuts to fund our schools, and we're beholden to local government, state government, and federal government. We can't tax, and we can't, if we were a Soviet era, if I were Stalin, I would seize your property just to run the school system. But that's not how schools work. But one thing we do have, and little op-ed since everybody else is talking, I was a student bus driver my junior and senior year. And Mr. McCurdy has been with the school system a very, very, very long time. And he has helped,
He didn't have to do all those berries, John.
well, not only has he taken care of our buses, he was a fireman for decades upon decades. And I know for a fact, because I saw him, that he would be at a fire, and I might add, a career volunteer fireman, be at the fire at night, and then you'd see him working on the buses the next day. So we have a very, very dedicated staff, and we're asking them to reduce buses even more. In 2009, they ran 61 buses. And in 2019, they run 51 buses. So that's 10 less buses at $30,000 a pop. And now they're proposing, at our request, to reduce it by 8 more. So, retraction and retreating is not always a good thing. And, we have to do it. We actually have very little options, but if we could get them
a direction from this board. And, you know, I think part of our job as school board members is to make tough decisions that, and we usually do a very commendable job of making people mad. You know, so, and this is different. This is different, but it's not like we're the first school system to ever consolidate bus routes.
I would like to also just add this, when Sharon and I met with the budget committee, we did talk about using half-cent sales tax to make sure that every bus has a camera, a working camera on it. And hopefully that would help parents with some of those fears, maybe decrease some of those fears if they have a working camera. For the most part, cameras capture the truth.
So, Chairman, would maybe if we could get some information back, maybe by Wednesday, and maybe do a brief, very brief special club meeting, even during the day on Thursday? Or in the evening, it doesn't matter. Would that,
It's fine with me.
that's probably.
So this Thursday.
No, I think she's meaning
Thursday week.
next Thursday,
Next
before
Thursday
spring
week.
break starts on Friday,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
20th.
20.
Will that suffice?
It's not the 20th.
18th,
That's a
okay.
Yeah,
reluctant.
that'd be a Saturday.
reluctant agreement.
I will not.
I would
meet
like
on
the
Saturday.
17th.
Yeah.
What, I'm not
You
sure
I'm
what
in
day
Orlando on the 18th.
Okay, so the 17th?
Yeah,
of April, what
Okay.
time?
Cindy, can you do?
that's a
the
Wednesday.
17th?
We've got
just so we're
interviews that
clear.
morning, but 11, they're 8:30 to 11:30 for the toy, Teacher of the Year. But
Well-
11:30 we're supposed to be done, so.
What if we did a 5:30 on the 17th? Would that work?
That'd be good for me.
And if it's standing room only, we'll know that somebody paid attention to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, 17th.
What's your concern?
My concern is that when you make this phone call to parents, if I were, and I am a parent, and I'm also a grandparent of kids that ride the bus, if I got a phone call saying, we're going to combine the middle and elementary bus kids on one bus, are you in or out, yes or no, with no explanation, no understanding of the possible 70-30%, no explanation about the cameras, my answer is going to be no, period. And I'm
I think
afraid
what
that's the
I think what
response
we're
you
going to have to do, Dee, is every school does have a parent advisory group.
I think we're gonna reach
And the
out to them.
principals have seen this presentation.
Okay.
We can make it available to them, and they can actually call a meeting of that group where they can explain some of this and seek feedback. The only problem in all this is just, it's a quick turnaround to get it scheduled and get it back to us. No, it's okay. We get it. We get that it takes time to do what needs to be done on your end. But we will get on this first thing in the morning, okay?
I don't want a phone call going out to everybody.
No, I don't either.
Okay.
Me either.
Everybody's gonna vote no. I mean, it's just gonna be, that's, with no information. we're gonna-
Well, we just need 4 out of 7 here to vote yes, and we'll be okay.
Okay.
Can I get a yes?
And
Next Thursday, hopefully.
can you just verify that they're not losing time?
Yes, yes, we will also email, Dr. Fuller, if you'll email the correct times, exactly what, just email that to board members in the morning, okay?
Thank you.
We'll send a new chart.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll recognize Ms. Jessica Anderson, our Director of Accountability regarding the early college calendar.
Thank you. So before you, you should have the proposed early college calendar for the 1920 school year. It has a little bit more flexibility than the standard school year calendar. Not a whole lot, because we're still bound by the same number of laws and required work days. So I have before you the proposal that I've worked with the early college, who's worked with CVCC to develop.
Okay.
Any questions I may answer?
Board members, do you have any questions or comments regarding the proposed calendar?
No.
Okay. Can I have a motion regarding the proposed calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, you have the Alexander County Early College Calendar.
Thank you.
Next.
Thank you.
this time, we'll recognize Ms. Kathy Cottle, our school nutrition director, regarding recommendation to rollover bids for 2019-20.
Thank you, Board. I just wanted to bring to your attention that all of our vendors have offered to roll over our bids this school year. Praise the Lord. We're so excited. And with your approval, we would like to do this. That's the U.S. Foods, the Smart Mouth Pizza Company, as well as our milk company.
Okay. You have the recommendation regarding the rollover bids. Any questions of the director? Comments? Smart Mouth Pizza is really good. Okay. Can we have a motion regarding the rollover bid proposal?
Motion to approve the rollover bid proposal as presented.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion regarding the rollover provision carries.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Okay, well, we've come to that time where we will, the board will enter into closed session to discuss personnel per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6. Need a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out.
Yeah, like cough drop bomb. Hey, don't worry about it. Hey, don't worry a thing about it. Yes.
So you're out
I was like,
I heard
yeah, I
that.
was like, yeah.
We don't need a committee meeting, we need a special.
We need a special.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
I know.
I figured you conspired with him to say.
No,
Every
I'm sorry, but
meeting
in
we
good
have is
conscience, I
special.
can't vote on something that I'm really just looking at right now.
Okay, good.
Well, no, because the first thing I thought of was like, oh my gosh, then how are we gonna do our bank days?
70-30 is the same.
Yes. I know.
Presentation.
And you're right, I mean, I was trying to be diplomatic, but we were trying to say these.
Yeah.